got my brother in the studio. Russell Dinkins is here. He is the Vice President of Marketing for SelectUS Insurance.
How are you, sir?
Man, I'm trying to be like you when I grow up.
It's been a long time since
Yes,
I've been
it
in this
has.
booth.
Yes, it has.
Almost a year, to be exact.
Yeah. So those of you know that voice well who have listened to this 860 frequency, you've heard the Boardroom Show, a very impactful show as it relates to connecting the dots in business and making sure that we exponentially grow ourselves in presence and in prosperity. And so you're back now talking about a very critical issue that we need to address in our community. Let us know.
Yes, sir. Since we're approaching the holiday season, we need to be mindful that there's 130,000 children that are living in poverty. And that's going to be tough for struggling parents this holiday season, providing them with gifts and getting into the holiday spirit. So my newly formed company, SelectUS Insurance Agency, we currently have 5 agencies across the city, and we're going to be building up to 15 to 18 in the near future, having one in every neighborhood in surrounding suburbs. But we're asking that you remember economically challenged families this holiday season to help us in the gift-giving process. SelectUS Insurance will donate $2 for each auto, home, business, or life insurance quote they receive until December 22nd, 2017. At that time, on the 23rd, we will go to a toy store and take the money that we have accrued, divide it into vouchers, and let children come in and shop and get themselves a holiday gift.
Wow.
Now all you have to do to be part of this program is text the word gift to 797979. That's the word gift to 797979, and you'll get instructions on your cell phone as to how you can engage us for that quote. Now I want to keep in mind that there is no purchase required for us to actually donate money. So actually each quote that we receive, $2 will go into a fund, and we're actually asking organizations, schools, churches, and sororities and fraternities to actually put this out to their membership, so that our goal is to get 10,000 quotes by December 22nd.
Wow. And so that quote can be for any scenario: auto, home, business, or life insurance, which is one of the key things that we need to have, in this society right now, specifically in the African American community.
Absolutely.
A piece that we need to address. And so the purchase is not needed, just the inquiry.
Just the inquiry, just us getting some basic information from you, developing a price point, and whether you accept that price or not, it doesn't matter. We will go and move money into this fund for children. And wow. A lot of times, you have insurance agencies that are the takers. We take premium from people. We give policies across the desk, which is no more than a paper promise. But you don't see insurance agents actually in the giving mode. And that's what we want to address in our community. It'll be great if other insurance agencies follow suit and try to do a similar program. But we want to spearhead it, and again, that's the word gift to 797979. And as Malik said, life insurance is a very important component of your financial portfolio. It's the only way in most families that someone who makes $30,000 a year can assure that their children have $1 million future.
Wow, that one right there is tweetable just in itself. So here's the thing. I need my Heart City family to get out and do this. Put this thing to the test. Call, tweet, and text 797979. Text the word gift to that number to obtain a quote.
Absolutely. You'll receive a response almost within 30 seconds. I'll ask you for some information. And then once we receive that, we will engage you for a quote, and then your obligation is done. Hopefully we'll save you some money in the process. As it says, you can save money and give a gift at the same time.
But no matter what, the impact to our children will happen regardless.
Right, it's something that happens for a lifetime. You have kids in this city who have never had a holiday gift. You have 130,000 kids in poverty, and probably they're in generational poverty. So the fact of the matter is that you could do something that's ever so slight amount of your time, and you could have a lifetime impact. Because the thing of it is, it's not the gift in and of itself. It's showing that child that someone cares, so that when that child becomes an adult, hopefully they can give someone else a piece of their generosity.
Wow. You've heard it from Russell Dinkins, always spitting knowledge and showing us new and innovative ways to make sure that our community is taken care of in economic, in business, in insurance. I mean, the list goes on. That is why he was the host of the boardroom. He was the chairman of the boardroom. Make sure you text the word GIFT, G-I-F-T, to 797979. Get a quote. At the very least, if you do nothing else but gain more information about what is necessary for you or your business, or to qualify yourself and ensure that the quote that you have is good, or that there's one better out there that SelectUS can provide, no matter what, a child will benefit as a result. That is my brother, Russell.
Thank you so much, Malik.
Dinkins.
I want to take 2 seconds to tell you how proud I am of you and the success that you have obtained. And I'm in full support of whatever you want us to do to stand by you as a business, as an entree to our client base. Whatever you need, SelectUS Insurance is here for you.
That's the boardroom. That's why it pays to be in the room with Russell Dinkins. Make sure you check them out, SelectUS Insurance. We're going to the break. When I come back, we're in the hall with Morgan Cephas. The EKG is coming up. We talk Jerry Jones. We talk Trump, of course. We talk Dove. In fact, we'll discuss what happens when doves cry. We'll be back right on the other side of this break. You're listening to the Heart of the City. We are back. You are listening to the Heart of the City in the studio with me, Ameen Akbar, the Director of Student Life. The show today, Building the Future. YouthBuild, stand up. One of your own is in the building, and we're going to have some great conversation with him. Now, you know, every second Wednesday, we head to Harrisburg to hear from our favorite state elected official, Rep. Morgan Cephas, to tell us what's going on in the hall. And to that end, Morgan is with us once again. It's an absolute pleasure having you back on the Heart of the City.
Thank you so much. And I definitely have to give a shout out to YouthBuild. They do an amazing job at really preparing young people, not just for high school, but also for post-secondary, and also like a meaningful connection to the workforce. So if we could mirror that pathway, that work that they're doing across the city of Philadelphia, we would not have an education problem. So
thank you for that, Morgan. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you?
Gosh, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well.
So,
the best thing about the Heart of the City is just like connect so many different
family
people.
reunion.
I'm gonna circle back and grab a meeting with you soon.
Oh, okay. Good stuff, Morgan. Good stuff.
So, Morgan, let's talk about this really quickly. What is happening in Harrisburg? What's going on? What do we need to know?
Yeah, it's a bit of a storm. It's a storm, but you recognize why you had to take the stances that you take. So before I got into government, one of the things that people would always say about Democrats are that we are tax and spend legislators. Well, we just want to tax everything. We just want to spend everything. This past budget cycle really showed Democrats really trying to lead the conversation around Democrats and like Southeastern Republicans trying to lead the conversation around what we do around our tax policy. So we haven't passed a budget, as I'm sure you know, but a couple of proposals were brought to the table to, again, address the $2 billion shortfall that we have. Two taxes, one was the hotel tax, and one was a storage container fee tax. And the one thing that you know about the southeastern region of Pennsylvania is that Philadelphia, our number one industry is tourism. And if we have a tax on hotels, that will have us lose conventions, that'll have us lose people coming to Philadelphia. It'll just be, again, another reason why Philadelphia is the cost of is extremely expensive in order to host anything here, to have a business here. The second piece with the storage tax is that we have the ports and we have refineries, and they utilize these storage containers. And if we tax them, we could potentially put them out of business. So that was one of the, most recent stalemates. And, I just say kudos to, Philadelphia's delegation, as well as some of our other Southeastern Republicans and Democrats for, really sticking together to really talk through how these taxes will kill an industry, and just trying to make it connect and how it relates to today's conversation. When we're in a composition for Amazon, Malik, when we are trying to get the Amazon headquarters here, and Amazon, they use storage containers for their merchandise. So adding a tax to that would have made us less competitive. And they also talked about during this budget season doing an additional online merchandising tax. Amazon is, one of the biggest retailers in the country, in the world even, and they don't own any stores or any brick and mortar stores. So a lot of their business is done online. So if we would have implemented any of that, we would have not only lost conventions, not only lost tourism, but we could have potentially, lost Amazon and put us, in a bad position.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we need to do? How do we advocate to ensure that companies like Amazon are able to come here and that the proposals that are being sent out to them aren't caught up in the minutia of these heavy taxes and really repressive taxes for business?
Yeah, I think just, looking at one of the biggest things that, we originally thought that we were going to be able to, galvanize around was a tax on Marcellus shale drillers. Okay. And that is the one industry that is not taxed in Pennsylvania, whereas in places like Texas, where there is Republican control in several different chambers, they tax, their shale drilling. And that's one area that we're not taxing. So we had a commitment from both Republican and Democratic senators over in the Senate. We had, the commitment of course, Democrats in the House and also some Republicans, especially in the southeastern region, that, were interested in moving that proposal forward. But, as you have seen it, flow out and see that we have not gotten to the table to be able to make that decision. It was a proposal that fell through, and I really think when we, look at issues like that or, taxing industries that are not paying their fair share, that's where we need to really make up the budget hole, and we need to make sure we're not passing a budget that makes us less attractive because, again, we sit between New York and we sit between D.C., but also is not doing it off of the backs of families. So just a couple of months ago, they were talking about taxing utility bills, taxing your phone bill, taxing, your electric bill. And, we can't continue to balance budgets that, again, make us non-competitive and also is off the backs of families, working families.
So that's a lot for us to chew. No, but that's a good thing because we have to move off of the milk and begin to get to meat a little bit, right? And begin to kind of understand the bells and whistles, but then also the mechanics of the politics of our state. And so as you guys are listening to Morgan, really dig down into what Rep. Cephas is saying. I encourage you guys to research, some of these current pieces of legislation, understand some of these taxes, those that have been thwarted, those that are still being presented, and those that are being discussed in the caucus. But more importantly, call your local elected official. Get involved in the conversation at the state level. Let them know your thoughts. Call their office and have some serious discussion because you are the ones that run the state. These representatives go before the Harrisburg Capitol and they go before other bodies to represent us and represent the interest of the people. But if the people don't speak, then what do they have to represent? And so I'm absolutely thankful for the pragmatic and progressive approach of Rep. Cephas and what she has done thus far. We are excited about you, excited about being able to hear from you every second Wednesday, and we look forward to our next on the House with Morgan Cephas.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, guys, we have heard from Harrisburg Direct. You know what you have to do. Ameen's in here getting shout-outs all the way from Harrisburg. The YouthBuild crew is in the studio. But we're getting ready to go to the EKG. I mean, there's a lot going on. I could touch so many things. I really could go to the Harvey Weinstein stuff. Y'all got that already. Y'all are handling that pretty good. Shout-outs to everybody who's doing their just due on that. Now, I could also go to Mike Pence. And I'm going to leave the Colts game, in protest. Well, that was a pure marketing stunt by a guy who's not a marketer. So that just ended exactly how it was supposed to, with him getting chin checked for doing something that absolutely crazy and wasting taxpayer dollars to try and prove a point. Sometimes we'd rather just have it on Twitter, like, what else is coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania. Now, Coach Mike Ditka, he decided that, as far as he was concerned, that there had been no oppression in the last 100 years that he knows of, and that current football players should respect the game and save your protest for after the game than during the national anthem. Well, we don't get an opportunity to suggest when police brutality should happen. I mean, I'd rather for police brutality to happen, how about the 14th of February? But I don't get that choice. When I'm stopped, I have to wonder if I have come across a rogue officer. That's something that you, Mike Ditka, probably never really had to deal with. And then you say, well, is this the stage for this? If you want to protest or whatever you want to protest, you've got a right to do that. But I think you're a professional athlete. You have an obligation to the game. Wait a minute. I thought I had an obligation to my community, to the human race, because I am human. Right? So if there are issues being addressed or not being addressed in my community, I think I'm not really sure if the pigskin matters more than the skin of the African Americans that are being dare we say, murdered in the streets? I mean, it's just what it is. And yes, we can always go to black on black crime, but that's the same as white on white crime because it's all about proximity. So let's kill that argument right there on its face. Now, Mike Ditka did, in fact, apologize, and he said, look, that wasn't what I meant. But in essence, what he ultimately said was, my privilege doesn't allow me to see your viewpoint. And that's really part of the problem. You will never really be able to fit in a black man's shoes or in an African American shoes if you're not African American. But the point is that you should listen to our stories, listen to our issues, and more importantly, if you agree that the human race does need to come together, then some of our issues should be addressed with the same priority that we're dealing with, let's just say, in the opioid case. Because that certainly wasn't the way that we dealt with the crack epidemic. And this is why we have this conversation around privilege and systematic, institutionalized racism. So thank you, Mike Ditka, for helping to keep this conversation going because it's absolutely important. And we hope that you do Google. I don't know, we can start with the Pettus Bridge and go just back even just another 20 years beyond the Pettus Bridge and you kind of see oppression. And you might be able to Google, I don't know, let's just say voting day and see, let's just see, water hoses maybe and dogs that attacked African Americans while they were headed to the polls. I mean, surely you remember the Woolworth counter because I remember the Woolworth counter. But I came in, because of my age, on the tail end of what was racism, and I was able to sit at the Woolworth counter, but that was because many of our ancestors that have gone on before us weren't allowed to sit there. Those are just some of the issues of oppression that you could actually, Google and educate yourself with. Now, This part is called When Doves Cry, because Dove has been crying. And they started off saying it was foul and it wasn't what their intent was, and now they're finally apologizing and saying they haven't said who actually is responsible for this, Ogilvy or Dove as a company. All in all, the quarterback is the one who gets blamed for the game, and so Dove, you are the quarterback on this. There was a racially insensitive clip of a black woman appearing to shed her body for a cleaner white version in a now removed Facebook post, basically promoting that the brand's body wash kept you clean. The way it was actually sequenced, however, was very similar to the whitening soap and the lightening soap that have been advertised over years throughout slavery and segregation. Now, here's what Ryan Ford, VP and Chief Creative Officer of Cashmere, which is a multicultural marketing agency, had to say. That's what's troubling about what's going on in this space. Either there are minorities in the room when decisions are being made, or they are, but they aren't empowered to say anything. Well, that's the absolute truth, because as a branding and marketing professional, I can tell you in the corporate space, long before I got into the CEO space, quite frankly, the highest that we could go was maybe assistant creative director. And even then, you were still just carrying the coffee. Maybe they used your idea, maybe not. But most often, just like Mad Men, the show, it was whiteface all the way through as it related to the decisions of advertising and marketing. To this day, that is still the case. And so it is important, as we talk about business, and as we talk about law, as we talk about medical professions, as we talk about coding, it's absolutely important for our minority students to learn advertising, marketing, and branding. All three of them are separate. They are not the same. And do not let anyone tell you that advertising and sales are the same, or marketing and sales are the same. They are not. So it is important for us to study what those things are and ensure that we have African Americans at the table on decisions such as filming Facebook videos where individuals are shedding skin. It's a good thing, at least, that Dove did apologize. Now, here's the last piece before I go into building the future. Now, Jerry Jones clearly said, look, I'm going to bench any cowboy that disrespects the flag. I thought about that for a quick minute, and here's what I came up with.
Silence! Silence! I ain't got no money, punk.
Look, I don't want any trouble. My light's about to get cut off.
Had you been practicing on your art, you know your way in the dark. Silence!
So, that, if you know anything about that, that was a quote from the legendary Dragonfly Jones from the show Martin. Why does that matter? Because that's exactly what Jerry Jones just said to us. Silence. The NFL owners were simply just telling you just now to keep your mouth shut, because you, as a player, you have no say-so at the matter at hand. Now, when we go further into that Martin statement, he says, I ain't got no money, punk. And that statement reflects the fact that the opposition was simply saying to you that, other than a symbolic gesture, which Jerry did, and he got on a knee, okay, and that's why we can't leave it at the knee. We talked about that over these weeks. And other than a brief address, you will not receive anything of substance, despite having your livelihood impacted by actions, some of which sometimes caused by the owners. And then he called you a punk to remind you, and this is how Jerry said it, the players. He didn't say, my team. He said the players. That's an expendable term, okay? And then, as that clip happens, the student comes back to Dragonfly Jones and says, listen, but I have an issue, and I just need to solve just that one issue, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything like that, but, that's us. We come back and try to explain ourselves, and we say we don't want any trouble, and we're not here to be aggressive. And I'm not trying to go against the master. Some of y'all will get that on the way home. You just want a solution. And then he reminds you that you're just a player. You have no ownership here. And then here's the last statement that the legendary Dragonfly Jones said. Had you had been practicing on your art, you would know your way in the dark. That one's tweetable. Because these are dark times. The hardest truth for us to swallow has been placed right in that statement. I mean, if we were truly practicing our art, if we were exercising our economic muscle, if we were actually focused on covering those who speak up for us, if we were ensuring that they have financial support in order to remain kneeling when opposition is trying to make them stand, I mean, if we were practicing true ownership, not spending a dollar until at least one of us sat in the owner circle and demanded that minorities were firmly at the decision-making table instead of just on the field, then maybe Jerry Jones would never have the ability to pressure us to get up. It's time for us to practice our art so that we know our way in the dark. The song of the week, Bruno Mars, Just the Way You Are. He was just in Philadelphia last night. He turned up the whole city. If you were on your Facebook timeline, you saw nothing but Bruno Mars live video clips. This song is Just the Way You Are. In the studio, man, I'm elated to have this brother, man. We go back, to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the halls of Masterman, J.R. Reynolds Masterman. When I met this brother, even as a young kid, I knew that he was going to be something special in the city. And now older and being able to understand the impact that individuals have, he is a force to be reckoned with in this city as it relates to our youth. That is Ameen Akbar, the director of student life for YouthBuild Philadelphia Charter School. It's an absolute pleasure.
Malik, what's up, brother?
Man, I'm trying to be like you when I grow up, bro.
Listen. I had hair back then when we met.
Hey, so did I. My hairline is taking curves like 76, brother. So you have this motto. You say, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they'll never sit in.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a big statement. Those who are willing to prepare the garden that they'll never really truly enjoy.
Absolutely.
And that's something that you are consistently doing. I mean, yes, you're the director of student life, but community service, empowerment, education, mentorship is part of your fibers. Yep. Why is it so important to you? What made this thing become such a burden for you?
So I think simply to watch somebody who is as strong as my father is and was growing up was really impactful. So when I ate, the neighborhood ate. Yeah. When I went to the Sixers game, we took the block to the Sixers game. When I started playing basketball, he started the basketball league in the neighborhood. So everything that we were ever taught, about community, it wasn't called community service. We just knew that every other Saturday we were around the playground cleaning it up. Yeah. We just knew that during the leagues that we set up, we put things back together, we embraced everybody, and I watched my father do that, his whole life, and I wanted to be that growing up, and I think that, I would get lessons from, who his principal was at Simon Gratz. My dad graduated from Simon Gratz in 1970, and his coach was John Chaney, right, and the legendary John Chaney, and his principal at the time was Marcus Foster. Yeah. And when my father was in the 11th grade, he talked about the first time he ever was in the principal's office and didn't get in trouble, Marcus Foster brought him in. We know Marcus Foster as the field, right? That folks playing, but Marcus Foster was a radical, and I mean radical in its best sense, revolutionary at that time. The first black superintendent in the school district of Oakland. Unfortunately, he was assassinated. Came up with school programs, but he was the principal. And he told my father, he said, Skip, imagine if you used, sort of this leadership in school in a positive way. And my father will always tell that story. And the reason why that quote resonated with me when it was introduced to me many moons ago was that the things that the young people that I've been around for the last 20 years, they're coming from people like me. They're coming from people like my father, and they're also coming from people like John Chaney and Marcus Foster, who they never met.
Right.
So on some level, Marcus Foster planted a seed in my father that went to me and thousands of other young people in the city, and now with some of the young people I work with, and they have no clue who Marcus Foster is. But Marcus Foster planted that seed in my father, and he's not around to see the benefits, you know, and the flowers from which that seed has grown. And I think that's always resonated with me, that, you know, this mentorship and young people being the future is much more about a long game than just me saying, like, I'm going to tell you what to do.
Right.
You know, as opposed to, you know, the adage of, you know, like I'm teaching somebody how to fish, as opposed to I'm giving you a fish and you can only eat for one day. That quote resonated with me, and it has always resonated with me, because I know I'm only in the young person's life for a limited amount of time, but the things that I say can and will last forever. Marcus Foster had no idea. YouthBuild wasn't even thought of when Marcus Foster had that conversation with my father in 1969.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah, man.
That's
good to see you, Malik.
It's good to see
miss
you,
you, brother.
Too, bro. I miss you too, man. So, you know, these are legends planting seeds, and these seeds are growing exponentially. And all of us have seen those kind of scenarios, whether they were, you know, they were coming to grip us up,
absolutely,
and take you off
like
the corner, right? Or whether you understood it and you know, kind of like flocked to it, right? Now we have young people who are truly in a very, very sensitive state. I mean, they are looking at the current leadership. Some they respect, some they don't, and we're just going to be real about that. Because young people, they want the solution. They don't want the rhetoric anymore. They got Twitter and Facebook and the gram for the rhetoric. They're like, as it relates to my life, show me how to win.
In 60 seconds or less.
That's it. That's it. And so what is it that young people are saying that adults, that the generation who's not necessarily interacting every day, needs to understand from this?
So here's what's interesting about this, Malik, and working with young people, and again, legitimately over the last 20 years, young people at any stage have always said, I just need you to listen to me, right? As opposed to being preachy and say, like, this is what I would have done, right? And if you look back at it, every generation has said the same thing about the previous, about the generation that's coming from behind, right? They were all radical at some point. It did some things that maybe your parents or grandparents didn't do.
Yeah.
And I think for us to understand that is embedded in the quote. If we are able to link those generations together, and again, my window with young people is going to run out soon. I'm going to be the old guy at some point, right?
Yeah.
We are responsible for training the people to replace us. And I think, you know, what we do uniquely at YouthBuild is we believe a lot in student voice and student leadership, right? It's one thing for them to come out of schools and environments, or young people just in general, when they look at leadership or law enforcement, as like, I've never had a voice, you know, in that. And I think what we do uniquely is that we give, I hate to even say give, that's just a part of our culture, is that young people, youth voice is at the center of everything, you know, that we do, because they are the ones in the seats. You know, and again, we guide, but we guide on the side, you know, as opposed to, again, throw another sort of adage out there, as opposed to being like the sage on the stage. I know I get automatic respect when I come in the door. I don't have to beat that into their heads, you know, but and people who I work with, you know, are charged with saying, like, how can we, you know, train, develop, help young people grow their voice so one day they can replace us.
Because it's not about a transactional scenario. It's about relational.
Absolutely.
You gotta be able to relate to them, understand.
Speaking my language, Malik.
Yeah, Doc. And so, I mean, let's talk about YouthBuild. And so, big shout out to those in Houston. I see Atlanta checking in. I even see Portland, Oregon checking in. Thanks for tuning in. So, you may not know about YouthBuild. So, give them the 60-second elevator on what YouthBuild is.
So YouthBuild, we are in our 26th year of existence, and what we do is we a program that's catered toward young folks who are out of school youth. Call it dropout, push out, however you want to describe it. Catered towards young adults between the ages of 18 and 20 who are out of school, disconnected, from job opportunities, disconnected from education. We call that term now is called opportunity youth. It'll be something else 5 years from now. 4 years ago, it was at risk. Like whatever that is, young people being reconnected back to school and vocation. We're a year-long program who focuses on in that first year. We call it, getting ready and getting all your credentials. You get a diploma. You earn a high school diploma, and you earn a vocation certification in a couple of different trade tracks: healthcare, the building trades, loosely. Child development associate, and also customer service and business administration. What's unique about that is that, yes, the first year is really about priming, and then we also follow, track, and actively support young people the year after they graduate. Because it's not, the diploma is probably worth that paper that we're looking at right now, and it's really about, like, how do we get the young person to the next step in their life, and that is all about, like, what are you doing the day after you graduate? And this is a ramp up for the day after you graduate, and we're really focused on, like, what post-secondary opportunity looks like in its broadest sense, what career placement and advancement looks like in its broadest sense, and still understand you're still dealing with a young adult between the ages of 18 and 20. How many of us had it figured out at 18, 19, 20, 21? All of this is still an evolution. It is really a unique model. Wonderful folks in East Harlem some almost 4 decades ago started this YouthBuild program, and it simply started on the backs of Dorothy Stoneman seeing young people in East Harlem not connected at school during school time and saying, like, why are you out here? And they would say, like, hey, ladies, school's not a place for us. It's violent. And she literally said, what would you do to change it? And that started a whole movement some 4 decades later, 260 some on any given day, 260 some YouthBuild programs across the country, and another 20 plus internationally. And what sealed it home, I mean, not what sealed it home, but like what made it more relevant for me is the first time I got a chance to go out and view another YouthBuild program. Right? And I met this white kid named Vincent, never forget him, in Minneapolis. I started in YouthBuild in 2006, and this was 2007. And his story about being disconnected from education was the same story as Malik from West Philly. Right? And then I went to Johannesburg in 2015. We did some work for YouthBuild International, and we helped kind of restart a program in Ivory Park. And when I met a hearing impaired brother, and he signed the whole time, and his story was the same story as Vince, was the same story as Malik, was the same story as on and on and on. And I said, like, this YouthBuild movement is so powerful, and it has connected so many young adults across the world. And at the root of it was just really listening to young people, and really adults caring about young people, and that doesn't cost us anything. No, that's like a charge that everybody can get, a part of. YouthBuild just happens to be the place that I've kind of dedicated the last 12 years of my life to be a part of, because I believe in it and I love it.
And what you talked about is a mindset. I mean, if you're going to be selfish, right, then you're also going to be isolated. And so sowing these seeds may not seem like much to you now, but this is part of the legacy building of my generation and our generation, right? And setting the stage for them to do the same, reprogramming the culture to connect the dots. And so it seems that YouthBuild is constantly connecting the dots through this really intricate, but I can't even call it an innovative feedback loop, because you're really just asking, what is it that you need to succeed? And then being there and showing up. And so you're doing that for Philadelphia. You become a legend in Philadelphia as it relates to giving youth new opportunities. I mean, you've served as an international consultant, a director's fellow for YouthBuild USA. You're on the Philadelphia National Service Task Force, the Mayor's Commission of African American Males, the lead facilitator for the Boys to Men program at Universal. You're a BME leader. He's got the shirt on. You'll see it on the live feed. You're a leader, a mentor, and a father.
Yes. The most important role.
The most important role. Talk about being a father and how that impacts your outlook as you look at it.
When I first talked about, my father, and I have to give sort of credit to how I was raised and my parents, and that ultimately affected who I was to become as a father. And I think that every lesson or every conversation or every relationship that I make with peers, with students, is coming from that familiar sense. Like for me, like folks folks were invested in every step of my development.
Right.
You know, so it's like, yeah, I'm obligated to be invested in every step of my children's development.
Yeah.
I'm obligated to be invested in every step of our students' development. And that has reigned through. Like it was something that I've always known what I wanted to be.
Wow.
Always. And
Yeah.
that moment that I would watch, you know, my father's from 24th and Berks, and he would be, and people would like just follow him like the Pied Piper, but it wasn't a selfish thing. He was just doing, or watching my mother do for people. And they were just doing. I knew from the very moment. My jump shot got worse. I got older. I got hurt.
Right.
Like all of that stuff didn't matter, but
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be around people. I coached for a long time, and I knew I wanted to be around young people. And again, that comes from how I was parented, and that directly influences what kind of father I am. Man, my oldest daughter, Amina, you know, has special needs, and that was a thing, you know, to feel like, well, what does it mean for your first child to have special needs? After we got through like the first initial phase of like, man, what does that mean? It was kind of like, you know, we're going to set the bar for her just like we would anybody else. And to me, special is better than normal.
There you go.
You know?
There you go.
She went and tried out for like her middle school basketball team on
Yeah.
Saturday. And it was like to see her in that moment when we were told that she may not ever hold a pen, or may not ever have a normal school experience, or may never be independent. It's kind of like, man, imagine if we treated every young person special in their development like we treated Amina, or like how I was treated growing up. And I'm saying, Malik, that's the blueprint.
Yeah.
That does take mom and dad, but it also takes care of old heads in the neighborhood.
There you go.
I had good old heads in the neighborhood.
Because mom and dad may not always be there.
They gotta work.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I think that's the blueprint. And I think we have much more capital and currency in our neighborhood than we like to be given credit for, and that sometimes we don't give ourselves credit. You know? And sometimes it's really about turning that maybe with negative currency or capital around and changing that mindset like you talked about, and understand that there is capital, and we don't have to wait on people to come mentor us.
Nah.
Because they get mentored by somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right. You're
And
right.
I was mentored by really, really awesome people, and there were some people that did not do the right thing and still mentored me.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it takes a lot of good people to translate what those messages are for young people. And then at the end of that conversation is really, you tell me what you want, young person, I'll help guide you to that.
Yeah.
And again, that's my role as a father, as a parent, as a mentor, as a friend.
Because the village is not this, you know, historical thing that they highlight on the OWN channel.
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean?
right.
The village is very real. It exists today, no matter what we try to call it, you know, whether you want to call it the hood, the block, whatever the case may be, my community.
Yep.
It's there. But there's also a very specific feedback loop that may not have occurred in previous times, which is just, my kid is so far ahead. Because for us, Facebook didn't even exist. We didn't
I'm
know
kind of
that.
glad, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, right? So, I mean, you know, beepers,
Right.
you know, two ways, like that was innovative for us.
Teach me. Mine was 905-3702.
Listen, and it's gone now.
Right.
Like I still have I keep my two-way in the office just to show people.
Right.
But they tested all that technology on us.
Right.
They perfected it with them.
Right.
And so now they're in a space where it requires us to say, hey, you're the leader in this newfound space. Help me help you. And then you gave us the blueprint. And listening audience is really clear. Get involved.
Absolutely.
You know, and show up and then show out with all your resources. Be there. And whether you're going to be like, you know, like Skip, and you're going to do, you know, you're going to be the Pied Piper of the neighborhood. You may not be able to do that because of your time commitments. But when you do show up, you show up strong and you show up with quality. And so I could talk to, I mean, look, we got mastermind stories for days, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to be bringing Ameen back because it's absolutely important that we keep our youth at the forefront of our conversations. We can't talk about, you know, the knee and the protest and all these other things. That's great. But we also have to talk about the future and how we prepare the future even in the midst of this current reality. That's what Ameen is doing every day. Now, I'll tell you guys, we have 60 years of experience, over 60 years of experience always on our show, but only 60 minutes to do it. I'm down to the last 2-3 minutes. I'm going to give that to you, my brother. Tell the listening audience what they need to know, what they should focus on, and more importantly, how we can support you.
Okay. Good. I think for me, the first part is really just about like, and you have the platform to do this, Malik, and I appreciate you for this. It's just like the story that you tell, you know, and how do you allow young people to tell their own story and not fall for like the banana in the tailpipe again, you know, because it will be said that our young people are only one way. You know, and I think what I found in youth development after all these years, when young people or any human being has control over their own story, then success is going to happen. We don't allow other mediums to tell our stories for our own young people. So one, listen to a young person and allow them to tell their story. At some point, what they're really saying to you is like, yes, I want to be guided in the right direction based on where I want to go. Secondly, you know, I think for me is, you know, like the plight of just education and equal opportunity and equal education, you know, just around, like it is really, really important to highlight programs like YouthBuild. We're not the only program around that's doing great work. There are people in the city that are educating young people doing really, really good work.
Yeah.
You know, and if YouthBuild can be a model for that, I just need you to go when you're in those water cooler conversations or you're at your picnics or you're around people that don't deal with young people. You say like, man, I heard on the radio the other day about this program called YouthBuild. What you're saying is not exactly so.
There you go.
You know, and I think, you know, to debunk some of those myths about some of our young people directly, again, you're right, man. We're on the ground literally every day, you know, for the last 26 years, re-educating, you know, and educating young people with real opportunities at YouthBuild. And we always accept other resources. Like if you go to youthbuildphilly.org, that's youthbuildphilly.org. There's a donate button on the bottom. We have open houses. We have a lot of those different things, and I think you guys have my contact information. We take resources by way of money, by way of people, by way of partnership, by way of real educational opportunity after they leave YouthBuild, by way of real employment opportunity after they leave YouthBuild. All of these things I can and I need, and our young people need, and that's really connecting. And we found that. And again, I'll close out with this. You know, when you give and you offer opportunities for young people, they generally reach the bar. But when you set the bar low, you will get low. And I think we've done a disservice to young people by setting the bar so low. And at YouthBuild, we certainly set as high as we can be.
You've heard it directly from my brother, Ameen Akbar, the Director of Student Life over at YouthBuild Philadelphia Charter School. We're setting the bar high. They've already done it. They continue to do it on a daily basis. Listening audience, you know how we do. We did it with Randall Woodfin. We're getting ready to do it with Dupree Kelly. It's not just about electing people who pay attention and who have our hearts and minds, but it's also about getting involved in mentorship, getting involved in resources. To that end, we'll be supporting YouthBuild. We'll keep you abreast of that. As always, you can follow us. The follow-up show will be reposted. Heart City Radio, Facebook, Heart City Radio, Twitter, Heart City Radio, Instagram. And as always, feel beautiful, look beautiful, and act beautiful. Why? Because you are beautiful. I'll see you next week.